Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow. Today, I'm just going to go over what I believe is going on with the SEC and try to make some sense for everyone as to what I think, what I believe is happening, and why it looks like the sky is falling and everything is getting crazy, full of pandemonium. Now, what we're seeing right now is we've been seeing a war, basically, with the SEC and crypto to a large extent. We've been seeing Gary Gensler unwilling or unable to be clear on how securities laws affects cryptocurrency. He tells cryptocurrency companies to come in and register and get compliant, right? Everything that he's saying is real. Everything that he's saying is true within his power as the chair of the SEC. What I believe the problem is, crypto are generally not securities. This is what I believe. It has to be proven in court, but this is what I believe. Which is why Gary Gensler is not able to effectively do a lot of the things that he would otherwise be able to if cryptocurrencies were in fact a security. But therein lies a problem, because cryptocurrency is not really a security for the most part. Some may very well be, but the majority are not. He's said it himself in the past. But the problem is these exchange platforms such as Binance that are ultimately doing a lot of things they likely shouldn't be doing, such as wash trading and other things, like Gary Gensler has said many times. A lot of these exchanges are running hedge funds on the side or trading desks and all sorts of things that would never be appropriate or allowed in like a Wall Street exchange platform, right? Like you're not going to find Ameritrade or any of these other platforms doing the same stuff. But the problem is, if cryptocurrency are not securities, then basically the gloves are off. These exchange platforms can effectively do anything they want, because if it's not a security, there's no real jurisdiction over what they do. In other words, if a lot of these are utility tokens or what have you, wash trading isn't currently, I'm pretty sure, not illegal, right? But wash trading of a security is. A lot of these things that are happening in these exchange platforms are a really big deal, because a couple things are coming. CBDCs, FedNow, any of these digital currencies, whether they're centralized or not, are going to ultimately, potentially, I would think, be traded on platforms such as Coinbase and Binance. Now, if cryptocurrency as a whole, or the majority of which are deemed not securities, and these platforms are able to engage in all of the activities that they currently do, that would pose a significant problem and a big risk to the CBDCs and the FedNow. So this is the issue. Gary Gensler has to basically say everything's a security, even though it hasn't been yet proven in court that that's the case, and every one of these digital currencies would likely have to either be proven in court to be a security or not, or ultimately just be accepted as a commodity. But the CFTC doesn't necessarily have the same reach, apparently, it seems, that the SEC does, as it does with Wall Street, because cryptocurrencies are, in some ways, a financial vehicle. The SEC wants to be able to lay down the groundwork for what is what, okay? And that is the problem. They're saying, yes, if you're trading, securities, or you want to trade securities, we'll come in and register with us and we'll help you. But they're ignoring all these platforms because they're really not trading securities. So there isn't a whole lot the SEC can do, because they don't have jurisdiction over these cryptocurrencies. Does that make sense? So it's not necessarily that they're ignoring everybody because they're just trying to be very, very difficult. What they're trying to do is police a market that is affecting people in many cases in bad ways, such as the case with like Celsius Network or any of these platforms that have gone belly up or debunked. So they're trying to take action on actual fraud cases in the financial markets because that is what they have the jurisdiction to do. If you're committing some sort of fraud or some sort of bad act, well, then they have a role to play. But prior to that, it doesn't seem like there's much they can do. Except for try to blanket everything until proven in court to try and at least establish some sentiment of fear about what the SEC could potentially do to you if you committed some sort of fraud or you did something against especially U.S. traders. That is the sense of everything that I'm making today. And at the same time, as Congress is putting together a more clear-cut, here's the thing, cryptocurrencies could easily fall, have one leg in the securities realm, one leg into the commodities realm. And this is the battle that needs to be fought. And that is ultimately what's happening in Congress is they're presenting this bill that will ultimately lay down the fabric from which cryptocurrencies are ultimately policed. And I do believe the SEC will play some role. The CFTC will play some role. And then once they have this boiled down, it'll make it effectively easier for them to go after these exchange platforms that are potentially creating a lot of problem. Insider trading, inside trading desks, wash trading to pump up volume so that they're able to attract more cryptocurrency listings, oftentimes at a significant fee, oftentimes with liquidity presented at the same time. A lot of things. And ultimately, here's what I believe that it may very well happen between Binance and Coinbase. I believe Binance is going to get the hammer hard. I believe the SEC, everybody is going to go after Binance in a multitude of ways. I believe that the SEC knows things and has information that the rest of the public does not. That'll likely come out in court, though probably redacted for the public until the proceedings have concluded. I also believe that Coinbase is going to ultimately come out as a big winner in a lot of this. Why? Because they have been working with regulatory bodies in the U.S. pretty much forever. They have a strong relationship. It's obvious that they want to work with regulation. They want to make sure that their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed. They want no problems. They're also already a public company. You don't just become a public company easily. It is a very, very expensive and time-consuming process with a lot of due diligence and vetting. This has happened. They were allowed to go public. The SEC knows this. They were a part of it. I believe ultimately Coinbase is going to come out ahead. And when it does, it will be used as one of the flagship platforms, probably likely alongside like Onyx, which is JP Morgan's platform, and some of the others that have been in development for a while. And then Coinbase will likely be used as one of the primary issuers of CBDCs and potentially FedNow transactions. That is what I believe, but it won't happen until we have come to a more transparent, clear-cut regulatory framework from which cryptocurrencies are policed, monitored, so forth and so on. Now, the final point to this is, and this is all the sense that I'm personally making, it's all just my opinion. I'm just some dumb guy on the internet. Don't take my word for it. Anything could happen. But the more I see Gary Gensler speak, the more I see a man speaking with invisible handcuffs. There's only so much that he can do. He knows this, and he's trying to do the best he can to enforce a lot of action against bad actors in a space that he likely at this point probably doesn't have much jurisdiction in. It's just my opinion. I don't know. And I'm trying to look at things from a perspective of, if I were an honest man and I were an honest person, take politics out of the equation, this is probably what you'd have to do, right? To try and be relevant in a new digital era of blockchain technologies. Like this is the fight he's fighting. It's the old versus the new. It's the old way versus the new world. And I think that is ultimately what's playing out. Now, the other side to this, these cryptocurrencies that were named, Cardano, Solana, Polygon Matic, Cosmos, etc. That does not mean that these are in fact securities. It's easy for the SEC to say these are all, we believe that you're trading securities, and here's a list of some of them. If these are securities, so is everything else in the market. I mean, because not a single one of these, I think, really hits every pin in the Howey test. And all of those things need to be applicable to a currency or a token or something like that in order for them to actually be labeled a security. Like I said before, there's a little crossover. Some of them have traits of a security. Some of them have traits. Well, they all have like traits of a security and traits of a commodity, right? Which means that the framework from which we're monitoring and policing these things have to play in both worlds: commodity, CFTC, SEC. But in order for them to go after the exchanges like Binance that are likely, in my opinion, probably doing some nefarious things in the backside of things, because I just, they kind of always have, in my opinion. I mean, let's be real about it. Binance got popular because it was willing to trade every shitcoin on the market from day one, and everybody loved that. All the degens would run to Binance knowing that, like, if it exists, it's probably tradable on Binance, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad project. There wasn't much due diligence or vetting on that front. If there's a token, we want to trade it. That's basically what they did, which there's pros and cons to that, right? But let's be realistic. In order to get to where Binance got, wash trading is likely very much a part of their overall thing, and because you almost have to do that to maintain your competitive edge against everyone else that is. It's like steroids in athletics. You either do them like everyone else is doing them so you're competitive with them, or you play at a disadvantage, okay? And that's kind of the way I see a lot of this stuff. Now, they have to basically say that a lot of the biggest cryptocurrencies in the market are securities, even though they have never been proven as such, even though Charles Hoskinson has come out and said, listen, we started in 2015 and we didn't even do a public offering or an IPO necessarily. We basically sold vouchers in Japanese marketing to Japanese people 2 years before we ever even hit the States. And on top of that, now we're like one of the most decentralized blockchains out there. There's no way we're a security. We were never a security. Thanks for that, but no thanks, right? And, other projects like Solana, maybe. I don't think they're very decentralized, so that's going to pose a problem. But I'm not fully aware about how they went about, being, how they were brought into the world, what kind of ICO or token offering or whatever, right? I don't care, because that's really not the point. The point isn't necessarily that these cryptocurrencies are in fact securities, but they have to label them as potential securities so that they could go after the bad actors in the space that are trading them. Because if they're not securities, then the SEC really has no jurisdiction over being able to go over somebody like Binance. Okay, so that's what I think is happening. It's easier to say, hey, you're doing a bunch of bad stuff. Here's some of the stuff we think you're using that we believe are securities, even though they probably aren't. But this is going to help us go after you before the floodgates open with everything else going on in the world, such as the CBDCs and the Fed now and a lot of the government issued stuff that likely a lot of these exchanges are going to want to take action with and play with, right? And they don't want to do that on any platform that they believe has nefarious intent in any way for self-gain. So here's the sum of it, okay? I think there's a lot going on. I'm not a lawyer, okay? I could be completely flat out wrong about everything I've just said in this video, and I'm not claiming to be accurate. I'm always right sometimes, okay? As I love to say, tongue in cheek. But that is the sense I've made of everything. The more I listen to Gary Gensler speak, and the more I'm aware of what is actually going on, the less I believe this is even a political thing. I used to think that this was like, oh, this is just the left trying to crush everything. I don't think that's what's happening. I think they're trying to use the enforcement action that they can, and they're ultimately using the tools available to them in a market that obviously needs some policing. As much as the world and all of us in crypto, we want to say, defund the police, so to speak, like we don't need protection because we're smart. No, we're not. The majority of people in crypto are not that smart. I'm sorry. They're following the leader. They're following YouTubers, even people like me, which is why I have a really hard time even talking about a lot of things anymore, or going over new projects anymore, because I know that the majority are going to become nothing at some point. And newbies that come into the space don't have any idea what they're getting into. I didn't know what I was getting into when I was first introduced to the space back in 2017, and it was during a bull market and everything I touched turned to gold. I thought I was God's gift to financial investing. Why haven't I been doing this my whole life? Everything I touch turns to gold. How could I be wrong? I should have started this as a teenager. I'd be a billionaire. But we all know how that works out. It's all cyclical. And you can pretty much throw a dart in a bull run, and just about anything you touch is going to go up. This is a matter of how much does one thing go up over another, right? There are levels to this. So now, in hindsight, I know that I don't know as much as I thought I did. And so I understand that there are a lot of risks associated with the cryptocurrency space, and we do need people who are keeping the bad actors in check. And I don't believe necessarily, like I kind of just had an epiphany, which is why I'm doing this video. I just don't think the SEC is trying to screw everybody the way that we all think they are. I think they're trying to do what they can with what they've got until the battles have played out and more definition has been revealed, and we can actually create a framework that the world is able to operate on within the United States. And here's the thing. The United States has always been the front runner in regulatory effort in the financial market that the world copies from. Okay. And I know that there are other countries out there that have regulation and they have a lot of stuff spelled out, and it may work for them. But there's obviously a much bigger responsibility for the United States to get it right. And I think this is one of the ways that they're utilizing to get things right, so that the rest of the world can go back to what they're used to doing, and that's copying the United States, because we typically don't fuck up. And that's just basically the way I look at it. Hate me if you want. You can tell me I'm wrong, and that's okay. But you know what? When the world seems like it's falling apart around you, all you can really do for some solace is to try and make things make sense. And I think this is the sense to be made of it, at least in my personal opinion. And until next time, crow your coins, and I'll see you soon.